So, welcome
Yes.
everyone to another dolphin communication project, Dolphin Lesson. Today, our topic is plastic-free seas, and we are honored to be joined by Miss MaryEllen. She is an educator at Mystic Aquarium in Connecticut, and she has been a friend of DCP for a very long time. If you are listening live, you can use the chat function for your questions. And if you are listening to a recording, we hope you enjoy it. And with that, I will pass it over to you, MaryEllen.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited to, well, as excited as I can be to talk about marine debris, in particular plastics. But the good news is we'll talk a little bit about what we all can do to help reverse the problem, or at least kind of slow down our marine debris issues that are impacting our oceans around the world. But thank you all so much for having me here. I am excited to be talking to you all. I am lucky that as I look out my window, I see African penguins. So even though I am in Connecticut, it is a little bit chillier than some of the tropical locations maybe other people have been from. I have a great view of some African penguins. And African penguins are an endangered species. Their population has decreased like 90% in the past 90 years. And one of the issues is marine debris. Unfortunately, marine debris and plastics are impacting every ocean and waterway. And so I'm going to use the kind of single-use plastics and marine debris kind of interchangeably, but they are different. So just kind of quick, the definition of marine debris is any object that doesn't occur naturally in the marine environment, and it's typically in oceans, salt marshes, estuary, beaches, and around the Great Lakes. And then marine debris can enter into the waterway a number of different ways. So we'll talk a little bit about how marine debris gets into our ocean and into our waterways and what we can do to maybe stop that. And so when we talk about what types of marine debris, every year we have our, and I think we have a chat, awesome. So definitely use that chat in Q&A. We have beach cleanups that go along all rivers, streams, and the ocean. In fact, there is a big cleanup around the International Coastal Cleanup, which happens in September. And what the Ocean Conservancy asks is they ask people to write down exactly what they're finding. And by doing that, it really lets us understand what trash is along our beaches. And the more we know what this debris is, what this trash is, how it's impacting the animals and the plant life there, the more we can start to come up with a plan on how we can stop that debris from entering into the oceans. Now, on the left-hand side, what you see is the top 10 pieces of litter, and that's just from the Long Island Sound. The Long Island Sound is where I'm based, so that's the entire coastline of Long Island, New York, and the entire coastline of Connecticut. And there's millions of people, about 8 million people or so, who live along those coastlines. And so that's where I spend a lot of my time cleaning up. And when you take a look at it, we look at cigarette butts. Well, there's plastic in cigarette butts, food wrappers, plastic caps, bottles, straws and stirrers, plastic bags, but not the grocery shopping one. It's not until you get to number 7 that we have a non-plastic piece, and then we jump right back into plastic by number 9. So that's just along the local waterways in the Northeast. The thing that you see on the right-hand side, that's globally. So the Ocean Conservancy, as they're picking up this trash, we have people from around the world who are putting this data in of all different ages of what they're finding along the beach. And you look, it's a lot of the same way, a lot of the same trash. So it doesn't matter if you're in Florida, in California, you're in Honduras, or you're in the Bahamas, a lot of the same trash. And unfortunately, a lot of it is plastic. So let's kind of start jumping in a little bit more and thinking about single-use plastics, because if that's what's most of the top 10, then that's definitely what we should be focusing on. And single-use plastic is any plastic item that we use once. It could be from a plastic straw to plastic packaging. Now, I'm not saying plastic is bad by any means. In fact, the chair I'm sitting on is made out of plastic. My computer is made out of plastic. Some of the pipes that are bringing water into your home are made out of plastic. But that's plastic that is used time and time again. What our problem is right now in our earth is the plastics that we use once and they disappear, or from our site, but they never completely disappear. And the reason why that's an issue is because when you look at it, you can see that it can blow very easily into waterways in the ocean. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. And it can have impacts, or can impact marine animals, from crabs and lobsters and fish to your charismatic animals like your dolphins and whale species. And so these are big issues and are all causing from us just using a straw and throwing away once. Now, a lot of the time we're asked, why don't we just recycle, right? So we're all told to recycle, reduce, reuse, recycle. But if you take a look at the bottom, since its invention, only 9% of plastic has ever been recycled. And the rest can end up in landfills or in the natural environment. When we think even more about single-use plastics, if you ask your grandparents, and you ask them when they were your age, or if they were younger, did they have single-use packaging and plastic? The answer will be no. Single-use plastic that we use once and throw away is only about 50 years old. And 8.8 million tons, it's a huge number, enters into our ocean every single year. So you're thinking that's a lot that has entered into our ocean, and what happens to it once it goes there? So let's keep thinking about marine debris and keep thinking about where this plastic is coming from and where this trash is coming from. So the main sources that we find, now that we know what the trash is that we find in the ocean, it can come from beachgoers. When I do beach cleanups, I find anything from shovels that might be left at the beach when everybody's packing up and bringing their stuff home, to plastic bags that you meant to bring stuff home and all of your leftover snacks, but maybe you left it there. And then you also have improper disposal of trash on land. I think we've all seen, probably when we're walking around, that the trash cans that are overflowing with trash. And in your mind, you're thinking, all right, well, I'll just leave it there and then somebody will pick it up. When they pick up the trash, they'll pick it up. But think about the animals that might make it to that trash can beforehand and move all of that trash that might have some food on it and bring it somewhere else. Think about right now, it's pretty windy where I am. If any trash was outside of a trash can, it'd be blowing all over the place. And then where is it going to blow? Well, it can blow into the trees. It can blow directly into streams that lead to rivers, that lead to our oceans. It can even go into storms, into stormwater sewers, and kind of block those sewer systems as well. And that's a little bit of an issue, but I'll talk about that in just a few minutes. Other sources that we know are ships and vessels, industrial facilities, so plastic that is used to make the plastic that we use, like a plastic water bottle. I'll show you a picture. It's actually small little pellets of plastic that are melted down to make the plastic water bottle, but those small bits of plastic can also end up in the ocean. Waste disposal activities, so that's things like a big old trash truck, and as they're packing trash in, as it might blow out of the truck or off of the side of the road, and then offshore oil and gas platforms. So these are all ways that marine debris has been found, in particular plastic, has been found making its way into the ocean. Now, this right now, and we'll keep going, is a little overwhelming because it seems like it comes from everywhere. But if we really look, at least half of these are things that you and I can control each and every day. And that's the one thing that we have to remember as we learn more about plastics and how they can impact the animals and the environment, is the fact that we have the power to change it all. So let's talk about those beachgoers and some of the things that you might find. The food packaging, the beverage containers, those cigarette butts, and the toys that are left behind. And you might have seen those videos of like a hermit crab. So hermit crabs don't make their own shell. Instead, they borrow old snail shells. And unfortunately, there's pictures of hermit crabs that are using bottles as a shell. And so you might think, oh, well, I'm just giving them a new home. but not necessarily the home that they might want or the home that they should have. So it's important that we take all of this stuff back with us and not leave a lot at all. Now, when we look at that picture and you see all of those people who are enjoying their beautiful day at the beach and there's so much trash there, you might be like, why don't they just clean it up? And that's a great question. But sometimes the idea or just even seeing all that trash, you might not even notice it because it's around us so much. So the best thing is, if you ever see that, is start cleaning up the trash. When somebody sees you start cleaning up trash, you might start somebody else from doing the same thing. And then back to improper disposal of trash on land. So I want to talk a little bit about this because I know it's plastic-free seas, and I'm going to talk about how it's impacting seals and turtles and dolphins and some of those bigger animals. But did you know that something like this, the improper disposal of trash on land, can also impact human health? And some people might not understand how. If I was to ask you what the deadliest animal in the entire world is, the answer would be mosquitoes. Mosquitoes kill more people than any other animal. Forget swimming and being afraid of sharks. You should be afraid of mosquitoes. And so mosquitoes are, they can pass disease. A mosquito can lay hundreds of eggs and have hundreds of larvae in just a small cap of water. They only need a little bit of water, but they can have a huge impact. Plastic bags that are left like that in bits of plastic water bottles can actually become breeding ground for animals like mosquitoes. So this improper disposal of trash, you might not think, how is that going to really impact the animals in the ocean or even us? But even if you live nowhere near the ocean, you are still impacted, and your waterways are still impacted by marine debris and trash. All right, let's keep going. So how does this all happen? So I told you, even if you live nowhere near, you're still impacted. So this is the Long Island Sound. This right here is where I live. Well, where the aquarium is. I spend a lot of time here, so it could be kind of like I live here. We have about 8 million people who live in the watershed. A watershed is an area of land where when it rains, all of the water drains into the same body of water. When we take a look at this watershed, you can see that if you live anywhere kind of along the coastline, what you do directly ends up into the ocean. The reason why we care about marine debris and its important single-use plastics, and the reason why everybody has a role to play in keeping our oceans clean, is if you look right here, this is the Connecticut River. The Connecticut River starts in a lake in Canada, and this is 410 miles all the way down to the Long Island Sound. There are 2.3 million people who live in the watershed all the way of this Connecticut River. What that means is this, is that if I live in Vermont, right about here, and I am at a park and I leave a plastic bag, that plastic bag can take its way through a tributary, small, almost like stream or river, to this larger river, and it will eventually make its way all the way into the Long Island Sound. And then in the Long Island Sound, it can make its way out into the Atlantic Ocean. So even if you live all the way up on the Canadian border, what you do directly impacts people in Connecticut, Rhode Island, and animals in the ocean. So there's a watershed that brings everything, water, to the ocean everywhere. So there is no way of kind of getting away from having debris, whatever it might be, making its way into the ocean. And as we know, even though we think of the Arctic Ocean and we think of the Indian and the Pacific and the Atlantic, they all do at some point come together. And that's where, if you think of like the garbage patches, if you've ever heard of them, it's where kind of all the currents are bringing all of that waste from each of the oceans. So there's not one garbage patch, there's like 5 to 7 of them in all of these oceans. All right, so that's why we kind of say, at least we say here at the aquarium, we have one ocean planet. So this watershed map is really important for us to think about how, no matter where you live, what you do directly impacts oceans. So I told you I'd show you that those little pellets, and so these are called nurdles, or they're little plastic ghrelin pellets, and this is the raw material that's used to make plastic. And it can be melted down, and I don't know if you know this, but all plastic is not made the same. If you took a look at this plastic and you really went down to what it's made out of, the plastic that's used for food packaging is made out of something different than the plastic that could be used for packaging of something that you have shipped to your house, or the chair that I'm sitting on. So there's different types of plastic, and each one of them is made out of different stuff. But they all start in this kind of raw material. And sometimes this raw material will actually make its way into the ocean. When you look at the size of that, or of these nurdles, you can see that they're almost perfect size for food for some of our smaller fishes that are swimming through the ocean. So we have this plastic all the way to the plastic bags. And what they can become are microplastics. So this is where we get kind of really into the nitty-gritty about microplastics. These plastics that you see over here, these are the microplastics that were in things like face washes. And there was a law, thank goodness, a few years ago that stopped having microplastics in things like toothpaste and face washes. And so some plastics are designed to be teeny tiny, and they're designed for a purpose like this. Other microplastics, and just another little kind of side note, because in case anybody's at home saying, well, what exactly is a microplastic? A microplastic would be a bit of plastic smaller than like a grain of rice. Then you can even get smaller than that to nanoplastic. So sometimes the plastics in the ocean could be designed to be small and with a purpose. And you would say, well, if this was face wash, why do I care about it being in the oceans? Let's remember about our watershed again. And let's also think about the water treatment plants. I wash my face with this face wash, and it has that plastic, or I brush my teeth and it has that plastic or even glitter in it. And then I spit it into the sink, and it goes through the wastewater treatment plant, and that will clean out all the bacteria and all of the bad stuff that would get us sick. But those plants can't take out the microplastic. So the microplastics actually get pushed back into the water with all of the fresh, clean water that's gone through these plants. So microplastics, whether they're the ones I spit out into the drain, can end up in the ocean as well. All right, anybody scared yet? Because we're not done. We still have a few more types of plastic to talk about. The next one you look at over here, these are microplastics that are called microfibers. So the shirt I'm wearing is made out of natural materials. So this is made out of something that grew out of an animal. And so this doesn't shed plastics. But my fleece that I have right here, this fleece jacket is not made out of cotton, cashmere, because really who has enough of money to be buying cashmere fleeces, or any other natural made material, which means every time I wash this, small bits of this black material come off, and they are also made of plastic. And then as I wash them, they get trapped into the water. And then they can make it, just like when I spit out my toothpaste with microbeads, can make it into the ocean as well. So a lot of the time we don't even think about our clothes are also made out of plastic. Now, there are things that we can do to help keep this out of our oceans. And there are special things that you can put into your washing machines to catch all of those microfibers so that we can get rid of them without having to have them go in the water system. Now, other bits of plastic, let's say a plastic bag, as it's in the ocean, you have the sun beating on it, and you have a lot of waves that are mixing it up, and it's slowly going to break apart. But it's going to break apart into smaller and smaller bits that also are going to just become so small that our eyes can't see them. So our plastics never really go away. They just turn into smaller and smaller bits, and eventually just kind of the chemicals that they're made out of. And as they become smaller and smaller, this guy right here, this is a Daphnia, also known as a water flea. See that green stuff that's glowing in there? That green stuff are bits of microplastic. Excuse me. And so this animal ate those microplastics as some of the smallest animals in our ecosystem. So as you can think about it, as this animal gets eaten by slightly bigger animals, so does that microplastic ending up in those animals, and that's called accumulation. So by the time you get to a big animal like dolphins and porpoises, they've eaten all of these other animals that have had microplastics in them, and they can keep accumulating it or keep putting more and more and more of that into their body system. Now, it's not all doom and gloom at this point, because I mean, same thing is happening to us. We have microplastics in the food that we eat as well, and I have a fair amount of microplastics in me. But most what we found is that the animals will be able to get rid of these by pooping out the microplastics. But we do know some other stuff about plastics that we're trying to figure out if maybe that they leave some stuff behind. But there's been a lot of research to make sure that, or to see if we really can get rid of this microplastic once we have consumed it. And they are finding that animals do, in their poop, have microplastic because it's being kind of accumulated as they eat. So that's kind of our microplastics, one-on-one on microplastics. And that tells you just a little bit about how it's getting into the ocean. It's breaking down from different things. So let's kind of move from microplastic to macroplastics, or the bigger plastics we're used to seeing. What you see here is you see a sea turtle in the upper left-hand corner. And that sea turtle right there, you can see there's a tiny little bit right here. That was this hook. So this sea turtle had a hook almost the exact same size as it inside of its mouth. And it was trapped right there, and that's a plastic multi-use hook. And that, unfortunately, the sea turtle couldn't carry that with it. And so it stranded, or it kind of ended up on the side of the beach here in Connecticut. Now, we have sea turtles that live in our waters, but we should never, ever have sea turtles on our beaches. Sea turtles do not breed on our beaches. Sea turtles do not rest like in Hawaii on our beaches. So if there's a sea turtle on our beach, there's something going on. And in this animal's case, it was just the fact that it had a plastic hook stuck in its mouth and it couldn't swim anymore. Now, we're lucky enough here at the aquarium that we respond to injured marine animals like this Kemp's Ridley sea turtle. So we were able to rehabilitate it, make it healthy, and release it. But it also let us know a little bit about what's going on in the ocean. Up here, we have a picture of a crab caught in fishing line or fishing net. There's something called ghost nets, which are nets that have been caught on things, and a lot of them are made out of kind of a hard plastic. And they get caught on the bottom of the ocean, and people actually cut them just because otherwise they can drag and hurt the boat. And then once those ghost nets are still in the ocean, they're still catching animals, and the animals that they weren't meant to catch. And so that's what you see here is you see this crab who's actually caught right in this fishing net, who might not otherwise be able to survive. I'm going to talk about this friend up here in the right-hand corner in just a second, as well as this one in the middle. But this over here is a sea turtle that is eating bits of plastic. And unfortunately, over 80% of the different animals that live in the ocean have been found ingesting plastics. And there's a number of reasons why they might eat it. They might think it's food. They might not be able to find food, so they are ingesting anything they possibly can find. But what we do know is they can't break it down in their stomach, and sometimes they can't even pass it through. They can't poop it out like microplastics, and so that can have some big issues on them long term. All right, so let's dive a little bit more into impacts. So this is a picture of a gray seal. And this gray seal is chewing on a plastic fishing lure, just like you guys can see right there. Now, when we got this picture, people wanted us to go and catch this seal, and they wanted us to save it from this fishing line, this fishing lure that it was playing with. Now, what you've learned about dolphins throughout all of this is that when they have, if you've been watching all of the webinars, is that sometimes they just play with toys that are around them or play with items that are in the ocean. And that's exactly what we see here. This seal, it isn't caught on it. It's not harming the animal. It's just trying to play with that fishing lure. Now, eventually it'll know that it's not anything it should eat and it'll drop it. But the chance of us catching this animal and trying to remove that is very, very small. just these animals are very fast and they can dive down and definitely stay underwater much longer than we can. So unfortunately, we just had to keep an eye to make sure that this animal didn't have it end up hooking them a little bit later. But that wasn't the same for this animal. So this is the animal right before it was released, and I'm going to show you a little video about this animal's journey here at the aquarium. So what you saw was that animal had fishing line caught around its neck, and it was and we found a number of seals that year with that fishing line caught around their neck, that kind in particular. And what we tried to figure out here is where was it coming from and why was it on all of these animals' necks? And what they found is that there was a particular type of fishing that was using that exact type of twine to put together bait. So what would happen is the food, go to the next one, is that the food, the fishing bait would disappear, but the fishing line would be kept, would just stay there in the ocean. And these seal pups were small and they were playing with it. And as they got it around their head and they were getting bigger, they weren't able to take it off. Even though they're pretty good with their pectoral flippers, they by no means were able to take it off of their neck. Now, if people didn't find them, that animal would have kept growing and growing and growing, and that plastic would not have given. That plastic would have just kept growing, staying where it is, and it would have cut into that animal's neck, and that animal could have gotten incredibly sick. Now, we were able to rehab, like you saw in that video, and release that animal back into the ocean. But more importantly, we were able to figure out who was using that for bait, talk to those people, talk to that group, and they actually changed the way that they were baiting so that we didn't have any other seals come in with that entanglement. So when we talk about solutions and we talk about just needing to figure out what the problem is, things like beach cleanups can not only help clean things off the beach, but also helps us to identify really what we should be focusing on. And here's another video. All right, so this is a leatherback sea turtle. Leatherback sea turtles are the largest sea turtle in the sea turtle family. So about the size of a Volkswagen Beetle, so a small car. They eat nothing but jellies. So talk about animals who are just susceptible to plastic impacts, because jellies floating in the ocean look an awful lot like plastic bags floating in the ocean. So they might eat a fair number of plastic. But then also, because they're so large, if there is that fishing gear, they can also get entangled. And so this is a video in 2013, just about 5 miles off of the coastline. It was a large leatherback sea turtle. And this sea turtle had plastic fishing gear caught around its flipper and its neck. And so the Coast Guard helped us out. And I love this because the way to keep our 2 volunteers safe was for the Coast Guard member to hold them by their belt loop. So good to know that that's the safe way to do that. This staff member here is working to take off the fishing gear, and this staff member next to him is just there to make sure that he doesn't get hit in the head. Now, this sea turtle doesn't know why, and he's trying to help it, but take a look at how huge it is. Finally get the fishing gear off, and then our sea turtle friend continue. Now, you can imagine that if there wasn't a member of the boating community that helped by calling and letting us know that that happened, that probably that animal might not have survived. They might have gotten incredibly tired from dragging along this fishing gear, or even, just like we talked about with the seal, it might have caused a cut that could have gotten pretty infected. Now, I just gave you a couple of kind of examples of impacts of marine debris and plastic on animals in the ocean, but it does impact all animals. So from dolphin species to other whale species to seals, sea lion, even down to different fish and sharks. These are all things that we see each and every day, and they're the results of what we do here on land. So the most important thing is for us to figure out how we can keep our oceans free of plastic and marine debris. And it's not going to be fast, And some of it that's already in the ocean, we're not going to be able to fix. But these are the things that we can do. We can make sure that no matter what age you are, you can make sure that you are supporting groups that are trying to keep our oceans clean, just like DCP, just what you're doing today, and learning more about the impacts of marine debris and plastics on our ocean. You can also tell your friends and family about what they can do. And the first and easiest thing is taking our reduce, reuse, recycle and adding a couple more R's at the beginning of it. Before you reduce, reuse, and recycle, perhaps you should repurpose, or better yet, refuse. I always have metal straws and my metal cup with me. And if I'm out and about and I want something that would need a plastic straw, you know what? I just take the lid off and drink without the plastic straw. And some people need straws, right? So some of us need straws for a number of reasons, but there is silicone, there's multiple use plastic, there's metal, there's so many different alternatives to, or other things that we can use rather than single use plastic. Even things like bringing reusable bags to your grocery store, or even to the mall when you go shopping. They don't only have to be used at the grocery store, are all ways that you can help to reduce the amount of plastic that's in the ocean. And then you can also do things like join beach cleanups or start your very own. And whether it's a beach cleanup at a school, at a church, at a community center, at a camp, whether you're at the beach or you're along a river, whatever we can do to help remove the plastic and remove the marine debris from getting into those watershed areas is the better. And then let's say you want to do even more. Well, as we take a look, we can see that scientists are conducting research to better understand the sources. We have you can come up with the next amazing tool that can help to reduce plastic and single-use items. One of my favorite stories is that there was an 11-year-old student, and she came to me and she said, "I need a mentor for a project." I said, "Great." And her project is that she wanted to eliminate balloons being entered into the being put into the ocean, because she was horrified when she found out how balloons, single-use item, can also impact animals in the ocean. So she helped her mom do laundry one day and saw those Tide packs, or the little packs of laundry detergent that come prepackaged, and you toss them into the water and then they disintegrate in the water and then the laundry detergent comes out. And so she decided that for her science fair project, she was going to design a balloon that's made out of the same material that packages those little laundry pods. And so she wrote to the people who make those laundry pods, and she asked for the different types of film that they use, because depending upon the brand, it could be a different film. And so she went and she made balloons out of the different materials, and she tested them to see which ones worked better in cold water and which ones would dissolve the fastest, because the oceans can be both warm and cold. And she designed her very own balloon, and it disintegrates into the ocean. So if it ever does make it in, and it holds helium, so it'll float and everything, if it ever does make it into the ocean, it will disintegrate before any animals can eat it or get harmed by it. That was an 11-year-old student who thought about that just by looking at the things around the house. So you don't have to be a researcher, a scientist, or an adult to be making major changes. It's anybody at all who has an idea, who finds the problem and can think of a new solution that can help us work towards our solution and our plastic-free seas. So the last kind of things that I want to show you, so we already talked about reduce, reuse, recycle, is pick up your trash, put it in the right places, be in charge of making sure the lid's down on your trash containers, educate others. These are beach cleanup pictures from beach cleanups that we do here at the aquarium, but anybody can do them at all. And you can do them whether you have all of that protective gear or whether you just have a picker as you're walking around, walking your dog, or just walking with a friend. You can help to remove trash from our waterways. And so the last little video that I want to show you, this is Maria. Maria's mother, Heather, she is not always able to bend down to pick up trash, but she loves the ocean and she loves conservation and keeping the world clean. And she's instilled that value into her son, who you might see in this video as well. And her son in first grade talked to his school and got them to have no single-use plastic at all in their cafeteria, which means they went to rinsable or washable mugs, forks, knives, utensils, everything. There was nothing that was single-use plastic. And he did that in first grade because he thought it was important that all of the students in elementary school understand that even the things that you do in kindergarten, first, second, third grade have an important impact on the ocean or on our environment. And by having kind of that habit at school, hopefully that the students would bring it home to their parents as well. So these guys spend a lot of time walking the beach. When Heather is not able to bend down and pick up the beach, that is when she asks Maria. So this is Maria. Maria will clean the beach, clean the ocean, and she is trained to go ahead, pick it up, and bring it right back so it can be tossed into a reusable bucket rather than a plastic bag. All right. So hopefully today you've learned a little bit more about marine debris, plastic, where it's come from, how it can impact different animals in the ocean, but more importantly, things that we all can do to help keep our oceans clean. So I'm going to stop sharing my video right there, and I'll see, does anybody have any questions?
Thank you so much. Before we get to these questions, I know I have at least a couple. I want to remind folks that if you've missed earlier webinars, you can find all of the recordings on our website, dolphincommunicationproject.org. Just look under that education tab and you'll find the webinars. They're also on YouTube at Dolphin Communication Project. In addition to a dolphin lesson, that's what this talk was, we also have deep dives, which are a little more advanced, geared towards some older students. Those are generally on the second and fourth Thursdays, while they're often at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. This Thursday, April 8th, is actually going to be at 12:30 in the afternoon, so a different time this Thursday. And then if you still haven't gotten your fill, you can tune into our podcast, The Dolphin Pod, and that is free directly from our website or wherever you download your podcasts. And we are a nonprofit and we are happy to offer these webinar programs and the Dolphin Pod for free. If you like them and you want to support us, you can do that all sorts of ways, including our Adopt a Dolphin program, becoming a member, making a donation, or even joining us in the field. This spring, we're recruiting for a July program in the Bahamas. So go ahead and head to our website if you're interested in that. And then stay in touch. Here's our email address, social media, and we look forward to hearing from you. So while our other moderators check on any of their questions, I got a question that was about those microplastics in beauty products. What if you have a bottle in your house and you didn't know when you bought it and now you know better, but what should someone do with that? Is it okay to go in the regular trash rather than use it up?
Yes, yes. So here where I am, our trash is actually incinerated and turned into energy. So we know that it wouldn't end up in the ocean, but yes, you can kind of throw it away rather than it being, flushing it down the toilet or down the drain. And that's kind of the same with a lot of things, just like we talked about with microplastics. This is kind of a little side note. Medication should never go down the drain either, for the same reason.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And then we had a question about clothing when you brought up clothing materials. People have started noticing if they buy a t-shirt, it says that the polyester has been recycled, so that part of the content of the shirt is from recycled plastic. Is that
Mhm.
a better choice, or is it still better to try and look for natural fibers?
So natural fibers are always, always the best choice, but it's not always the only choice you have. So sometimes natural fibers, or 100% natural fibers, are a little bit more expensive, and we do kind of have to balance, everything. But the good news is that washing machines, the companies that make washing machines, are now very much aware of microplastics in clothing as they shed. So like this fleece that I have is made out of water bottles. There are t-shirts that have been made out of water bottles. So you are repurposing and reusing, which is always great. But there are things that you can literally just toss into your washing machine, and they're designed to look like coral, believe it or not. And they help to grab those microplastics so that you can throw them into the trash can rather than have them go down the drain. So I would say, as long as you're responsible with how you wash your clothes, or what kind of is the next step, choosing something that is polyester or repurposed plastic is a much better choice than just throwing the plastic into the ocean.
And finding, if you have access to it and it's in your budget, finding brands that are going to last a little longer, so that you can pass on the clothes if you grow out of them, to another child, so that they get used by multiple children as opposed to only lasting for a year or so.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you can look, there are some really cool ways to repurpose clothing, and turning like t-shirts into reusable bags. And it's not sewing at all. It's just using scissors and tying them. So you can even take some of those clothes, and even when you don't fit in them anymore, turn them into something that you can reuse into a lovely little purse with fringe.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate your time, and we hope that our listeners have enjoyed this talk. If you're looking for some more information on marine debris, we did have an earlier deep dive on it, so go ahead and find that on our website if you want some more kind of advanced conversation around marine debris. And we hope to see you again at another webinar soon. Unless, do we?
Well, thank you all so much.
I think we have another
Before
question.
you go,
Yes.
just had, so where do you find that coral thing that you put in your wash, using that as your term, that you put in your washer to collect plastic to get rid of?
So it's called a coral ball, and you can get it right from their website. And there's also things called a guppy bag that also work the same. Some organizations who are aware of the fact of microplastic, and Patagonia is one of them. Patagonia will actually sell that in addition to their clothing as an interim solution until can figure out how to not have shedding clothing. Yeah. I know I normally have one on my desk, but I brought it home because I was doing laundry. So. See, I thought you were going to invite me to go to the July eco tour. That's what I thought was going to happen.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
By all means.
Yes. But thank you.
And
then
you can help with beach cleanups in another country.
I love it. I will clean any beach.
Excellent. Well, thank you again, Miss MaryEllen. We are very appreciative of your time, and we hope that everyone has enjoyed today's webinar.
Yes. Thanks so much, and have a great rest of your day.
Great. Bye, everyone.
Bye.